Welcome to The Voiceover with your host, Dee Foster III, where we discuss relevant topics that affect the culture with bold, independent commentary. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and encouraged.
It's Friday somewhere, and it's 6 o'clock somewhere. Welcome to the Voice Over Now podcast. I'm your host, Dee Foster III, CEO and President of Wake Up Global Networks International, and I'm so glad. Come on in, breathe. It's Friday. I know it's been a rough week, but that's okay. We made it to Friday. Get you a chill, kick up, go to happy hour, whatever you do, go to the gym, go take a nice walk and listen and look at this video, this podcast. It's going to be interesting. Listen, before we get into today's content, you know the spiel. Like, share, subscribe, follow, hit that notification bell so you know when this channel uploads brand new content. That's right. Listen, I always say, if you love conscious content, you are at the right place. WPBmedianetworks.com. Want to say shout out to its owner, April J. Thank you so much for giving us and many others a platform to use our voice. You can have a voice, but if you don't have a platform, and I want to say thank you so much, April J, for allowing us to have a voice on your platform. Before we get started, go to our website, www.wakeupglobalnetworks.com, www.wakeupglobalnetworks.com. Also, have you checked us out on this channel every Sunday morning at 7 a.m.? It's the Voice of Hope Connection, where we just connect you to hope. We always say, like this week, we don't know what a week is going to bring, but we do know that there is a word every Sunday morning. And if you can't get up, or if you in church, you can be a part of the rewind, replay crew and listen to it and watch it, and make sure you share it with your family. Make sure you share it with your loved ones. Matter of fact, while I'm talking, put the link in your contacts and send this message out. This is going to be powerful. You know, I want to say thank you for all of your support. I want to hear from you. Our email address is thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com. Up here, it's getting a little warm somewhere. I'm waiting for others to come in. Come on in. I want you to leave your comments in the chat. Is this going to be a very in detail? Probably won't even finish today. Won't even begin today, because y'all know how I do. Listen, on this podcast, we do a plethora of topics, a plethora of subjects: politics, spirituality, or what's going on in the culture, which we're going to talk about today. But I always, in every podcast, I want to bring valuable lessons. I want to point out the principle, not teach all the time, but I want to talk about things that everybody is aware of, people that people are aware of, not as people are pointing, but as using them as a teaching moment, using people that people know as a teaching tool. If I use Tom, Dick, or Harry under the bridge, nobody would know who I'm talking about. So sometimes I use people that are out there and use what they're going through, not to talk about them and what they're going through and their pain, but to use their moment as a teaching moment for us. Because in all things, we are all students, and we are all learning, and we are all being equipped to grow and develop. As a matter of fact, if you want to be a part of our spiritual classes every other Sunday, just send me an email, thevoiceovertheglobe@gmail.com, and I'll send you a secured link. And you know what kind of teaching we do by now. We put clips of it out every now and then on our podcast, just to give you a feel of what we experience during our spiritual growth sessions. Today, like, share, come on, somebody, like, share, subscribe. Take a breath in. That's right. Take a sip. Speed up the treadmill. Take a breath, because you're going to need it all today for today's subject. I want to talk about the discussion today, like this. Subscribe. Lessons in Power. Power. Drake. For some of you, Aubrey Graham. Now, I have to build my case. You know me. I don't just jump into a subject. I don't do a lot of reaction videos, and that's okay for those who do reaction podcasts. But I like to kind of build my case so that you, my loyal listeners, can develop your own mindset. I don't tell you what to think. I just put the information out there so that you can make a decision for yourself. Everybody say Drake, Drake, Drake. Now, I want to talk and I want to use Drake. I'm going to be talking about Drake, XXX Tentacion, who many of you know is unfortunately deceased. And I want to talk about his trial. And I want to talk about now an appeal that's taken place. And I want to talk about why I think that this subject of exes, who I will refer to further in this podcast, is coming back up and Drake is being mentioned. And in my opinion, it has everything to do with power. See, a lot of people don't understand power. Now, I know some of you out there say, I don't play power games. Well, that's not true. If you're in this planet, if you're on this planet and you are participating at any place in space on this planet, whether you agree to it or not, you have entered into the game called power. Power. Explanation, explanation, explanation. All of life is power game. And most people, unfortunately, they lose because they do not understand the game of power. Now, several months ago, I think it was last summer, I did a video or recording on why I thought P. Diddy had fallen. And it had to do with the same, running along the same lines of power. I did a recording on my Spreaker. And I sent it to my Spreaker followers talking about knowing your sphere of power, because power is not power is not power. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Now, none of us have a choice whether we're going to be involved in this game called power. I mean, you may not. I hear people say, I don't play games. Well, you may. If you don't play games, then you are being played. And you understand what I'm saying. I understand we don't play mind games. I'm not talking about that. But all of us, if you have a job, if you have a position, if you're in a fraternity, if you're in a sorority, if you're in a relationship, if you know people, if you running for an election, if you are a politician, whatever, you have entered into the big arena. If you have a house, if you have a car, when you go to buy a car, it's power games. When you go to settle on a house, it's power games. When you go to negotiate a deal, it's power games. You cannot avoid power. You just have to know how the power game is played. And that's why I'm here to give us lessons in power from Drake. What is power? Like, share, subscribe, follow, like, share. Power simply, and I know everybody can give these philosophical definitions of power, but I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it plain. It's leverage. Power is simply leverage. And it's leverage for several reasons. Either it's economic leverage, right? Either it's influential leverage. Either it's informational, what people know or know about you or know about something or someone else, leverage. It's political. You like that? You like that? Political leverage. And simply to have power means you have the upper hand. Power. And nobody can opt out. I mean, at least if you're living, if you're breathing, once you're dead, you opt out. But if you're living, if you're breathing, if you have a job, if you're making decisions, if you own anything, if you're going to invest in anything, you have no options to opt out of the game called power. Because everybody is trying, everything mostly, even in church, is trying to gain leverage over you. Most relationships, people are trying, come in, like this, share this. I know, I keep it raw, straight, no chaser. That's why we do it on Friday when you ain't got to go to work most people tomorrow, so you can turn up and listen to this. I want you to share this. That's why in relationships, most people are trying to gain leverage. We look at what's going on in our country with our government and our political officials. Trying to gain leverage is simply called power. And unfortunately, most people don't even, number one, know they have been drugged into a power game until a power move is made on them. And secondly, once they're in it and recognize it, they don't even know how it all works. And we've all, listen, don't feel bad. We've all been played. We've all been victims of others' power game. We've all, yes, numero uno. We've all, in our days of ignorance, in our days of unawareness, in our days of gullibility, in our days of wanting to be liked, in our days of wanting people to accept us. Come on, we've all fallen into the trap of being a victim of that power game. But after a while, when you wake up and you realize and you listen to podcasts like the Voice Over Now podcast with D. Foster 3, and he's shaking you and waking you up in different areas, you realize I will not be a victim of people's power games anymore. And that's why I'm talking about lessons in power, because there are levels and then there are lessons. There are levels to power. And this is a part, and I'm getting ahead of myself. I have so much. Listen, we're not going to finish this. That's why you got to come back next week, and probably a part 3. Y'all know, I don't like to just jump into stuff and assume stuff. I like to build the case. I should have been an attorney, right? I should have been an attorney. Know how to put a brief together, know how to put a case together, know how to put an argument together, get all the data, get all the information, and present it to you, the court. This game of power, you can't elude it. I know you don't want to play games. You can't help it because people are playing games on you for their advantage. But I will say that once you willingly become a willing participant in the game, you got to go all the way. See, that's where a lot of people make a mistake. I'm just giving you some little PowerPoint, bullets right here. Are you on Microsoft and they let you do those bullets? A lot of people make a mistake because they start in the power game. They know it's a power game. They're benefiting from the power game. But at some point, they ring the bell on the bus saying, I want to get off this power ride. And that's one of the lessons. You don't choose when you get off the gravy train if you've been eating, sapping, sucking the gravy. Because there's always a penalty. Drake, P. Diddy, and others for getting off the power train before the power players give you permission. That's why I caution you not to be ignorant of these power devices, as some would have you. You like that? Like this, share this, subscribe. So, all right. You say, where you going with this? I know. You're going to have to come back. But I told you at the beginning where I'm going to end up. I told you at the beginning where I'm going to end up, but I have to build my case. I have to help you understand what power is. I have you understand the trend that I'm thinking of, the path that I'm going on. I have to help you understand where I want to end up. But this is where I start. Like this, share this, subscribe to the channel, push this up in the algorithms. That's even a power game, algorithms. Algorithms rule the world. Yeah, I have to do another video on that. It's algorithms. And this even leads into my conversation with Drake and Universal Records, Drake, you say, who is Drake? Oh, I can't help you. You don't know who Drake? You haven't heard Drake? You haven't heard of who Drake is? Google Drake. I won't have time to go on. Oh, ask you have Gen X. Ask somebody. Somebody around you will know who Aubrey Graham is, right? One of the biggest, was the biggest until Kendrick Lamar over the last 8 months came with They Not Like Us and kind of kicked him out of his spot. And this has a lot to do with what I'm going to talk about. So I got a big rabbit hole to run down, and I can't really do it on one show to do it justice. That's why you're going to have to come back. Like it, share, subscribe. All of this comes together and ends up at one stop called power. Lessons in power. Now, let's talk like this, share this. You say, why do you keep bringing up Drake? Because Drake is the object lesson that I'm going to use in explaining lessons in power, the do's, the don'ts. Because when I looked at this story, and I've been following this story for about a year now, and if you listen to my audio podcast, go back to my audio podcast, I talked about a little bit about the Drake and Kendrick Lamar beef, and how there was a beef, and how there's been a beef, and how it got real heated during the summer. So go back on this channel. I did an audio, not a video, an audio podcast, the Voice Over Today audio podcast, sometime I think in May or June, and this will give you a brief history of what I'm talking about. But I want to take it further, right? So Drake, one of the biggest artists known to man, a Canadian. Originally Drake, Aubrey Graham is his name, was, I believe, with the Amigos, came in under Lil Wayne's label, started, as the song say, started at the bottom, but he's here, started at the bottom. And long story short, currently Drake is an artist of Universal Music Group, one of the biggest music groups in the world. President Lucian Grange. All of this is coming together. Power. And several months ago, I did another podcast, audio, I believe it was, where there's always been, and in rap, R&B, there's always beefs. There was East Coast, West Coast. There was, Biggie and Tupac, and there's always Ja Rule and 50. So there's always these beefs. Some are fake, but some are real. Some are for promotion, whatever. But there's always these beefs. So there's always been this kind of hidden beef with Drake and Kanye, although they were close at one time. But when you're in the same field and you're competing for the same audience and it happens in the church, it happens everywhere, it happens in politics, it happens everywhere. It's just that most people are not as open with theirs. They're more especially in church, they're more come from behind. They smile in your face, But all the time they want to backstab. But in the R&B world, they don't smile in your face. They backstab you with lyrics, and they backstab you with beats, and they backstab you with joining other artists that are your enemies. Just look at the recent beef with 50 Cent and Lil Meech and Big Meech. I mean, how that blew up, and how Rick Ross was in the middle of it, and how Rick Ross has been an enemy of 50 Cent for years and years and years, and how Meech, who 50 Cent was supporting his show, BMF telling the story and putting money and food into Meech's pockets. And then all of a sudden, Meech hooks up with, I'm just using this as an example of beefs. Meech hooks up with Rick Ross, 50 Cent's enemies, and 50 makes a power move and says, what next season? If I had a gun, I go, pow, pow. That's a power move. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'll probably talk about that later because there's lessons to be learned in that. This man is feeding you. This man took care of your son. Now, I'm not taking sides. I always do principle. It's because of this man. He sent your son to acting school, Big Meech. I don't know all the details. Let me put it up. I don't know all the details. I only know what I read. I only know what I hear. I only know what's said. I'm sure there's some behind the scene things. Like I just found out some behind the scene things with this XXXTentacion issue in between the beef between him and Drake while I was studying for this podcast. Like, share, subscribe, follow. Like, share, subscribe, follow. And he's feeding you. And he gives your son a role. And he sends your son to acting school. And he's paying your son's money. And he does some other things for your son that I won't mention. And you come out of jail. And you connect with his 50 Cent, I'm talking about one of his biggest enemies besides Irv Gotti and besides Ja Rule, Rick Ross. And you take a picture because that's your big comeback show. I don't know if Meech understood power. 50 Cent, Curtis Jackson is a very powerful man. He's a very rich man. Remember I said power is leverage, and one of the ways you leverage it is through wealth. Sometimes it's influence, sometimes it's information, but with 50, it's wealth and influence. See, and that's the first thing, not the first thing. Y'all, just come back. I got so much to share. When you deal with people, you have to know exactly who you are dealing with to the best of your ability and their shot range. How far does their power gun go? See, the problem is 50 is not a street guy anymore. Meech and I don't know how I jumped to this, but I want to use this to build my case. But I really want to get back to Aubrey Graham. Meech just came out of prison. Meech has not been reformed from that big 80s and 90s or 90s and 2000 drug dealer. 50 Cent has transformed. He's not street anymore. 50 Cent walks in suites. So he's playing with another dimension of power that Meech is not used to. So when 50 looked at Meech hooking up with his enemy, he leveraged his wealth to make a boss, whether you like it or not, power move, and said, what next season? Because Meech's son was kind of texting saying, don't mind my dad. He was trying to just get a hookup until we go to next season. So it was like it was innocent. And 50 responds as a businessman, not as a street hustler, as a businessman now. 50 is a businessman. 50 controls real estate. 50 is a boss now. So I wonder if Meech understood the 50 he dealt with in the streets and the 50 he was coming back dealing with in the suites. Because in every dimension of power, you have to understand how vast the power base is of the person that you're dealing with, so that you don't make a Meech mistake. And that is a beef 50 cut off the revenue. But the bottom line is, who leveraged the power? 50. Now, I have some other things I could say about that, and maybe we'll connect this, but I want to get back to Drake, because this is really the lesson I think Drake teaches. Even though that's a power lesson, that's a quick, that's the abbreviated notes. Remember school where you get the abbreviated notes. You don't buy the whole book, you just buy the book of the abbreviated notes. But there's some more things in there. But I think that's enough to learn about power. And now he's unemployed. He's selling promos when he was set. All simply because of what I'm saying on this show. Somebody, somewhere didn't understand the lessons of power. And especially when you're dealing with people like 50 Cent. And there's a lot of us out there, people like 50 Cent, that once you cross them, and most people with power have, there ain't no coming back. There ain't no, this ain't the street. Once you cross them, and you should know that dealing with 50, come on, you should look at Ja Rule, you should look at Irv Gotti, you should look at all the people, Ashanti, go on down the list. You didn't know who you were dealing with. Or here's another power mistake. You assume it wouldn't happen to you. I call that the arrogance of powerlessness. Huh? Would you say, D. Foster? The arrogance of powerlessness, of having no power, when you assume a person's power can't affect you. And I think that's what is happening with Drizzy Drake. He doesn't understand the power base of Universal, of Lucian Grainge. What are you talking about, D. Foster? Well, you're going to have to come back next week. I'm out of time. This is Lessons in Power, Part 1. You can't miss next week. You can't miss next week. I want you to like. I want you to subscribe. I want you to share. I want you to follow. This is going to be lessons and principles that I believe will change your life. If you love conscious content, keep it right here on WPBMediaNetworks.com. I want you to push the like. Push this up in the algorithms, y'all. This should be in the top of the algorithm so that people who love conscious information all over the world can tune in to this channel. Thank you again, April J, for you leveraging your power to give us a voice. Until next week or Sunday morning, the Voice of Hope Connection right here at 7 a.m. Or next week, don't forget, tell somebody. It's going to be Lessons in Power, Part 2. This is D. Foster 3, reminding you that you have a voice. Keep lifting it, and that there is power. But you have to learn how to leverage it. Peace.
Thank you for being a part of The Voiceover. Please follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay connected to our upcoming shows and guests. Instagram at The Voiceover Radio. Twitter at DPropheticI. That's the letter D, Prophetic, EYE. If this show has enriched you in any way, please share The Voiceover among your circle. Until next time, keep allowing your voice